Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall, psychic all the way from the Gold Coast in Australia. Well, what an interesting week we've had around the world. I mean, you know, we're all getting a little bit COVID tired and getting a little bit sick of talking about the pandemic. So let's just shake it up a bit and let's just talk about the Middle East instead. What terrible atrocities that are happening in Afghanistan now. And look, I'm not going to go into the politics or the whys or the wherefores of why things are happening or how they should be happening. It's just, I think, like many of us, we sat there in absolute horror when we saw the film footage on the video footage on the TV about people trying to hang on to planes in sheer desperation to get out of the place. And you can only begin to imagine the terror that they must be feeling. But anyway, on a much more positive note, let's look at the Simply Tarot card of the week. And I'm pleased to say it's a lovely card this week. It's the Lovers card. Now, whether or not you're in a new romance or you're in an existing one, you hear the word lovers and all of a sudden your heart does a flutter. You start to melt a little bit and you start to become a little bit more placid and usually happy in ourselves. It invokes this warm, beautiful, fuzzy feeling in all of us that the magic of a new romance. Now, the Lovers card, don't want to break anybody's bubble, but it doesn't always mean a new romance is on the horizon. As many of my students used to think over the years that they'd see the Lovers card and they'd say, oh, but I'm happily married. I don't want a new lover. And I used to burst out laughing and say, now let's explore the card a little bit more closely, because it doesn't mean when we get the Lovers card in a reading that we're going to get necessarily a new lover. So the Lovers card can mean love affairs, obviously. It can be romance building again within a marriage or a relationship. Now, marriage is a word that to me still means legally getting that piece of paper and being married. You can be in a living together arrangement, you can have a partnership, you can call it whatever label you want, but marriage to me still means that piece of paper that says it's official. Then it's the relationship that we might have with someone else, whether that be a relative or a loving relationship that we can share with a friend. Now, when I use the word loving relationship, I'm not necessarily talking about a sexual or a bedroom activity relationship. It can be the friendship, the close bond that we have with people in our lives. I mean, you know, males can have female friends with absolutely no bedroom connotation to it, and vice versa. And also we can have relationships with people of the same sex where it's not indicating any intimate sort of relationship in that way, just that we have someone that we share loving thoughts with, that we get on really well with. They're like an extension of us. Now, that's that very special kind of best friend. And in today's world, I think we could all do with a couple of those, could we not? People that sort of really get us. People that say, hang on a minute, you're being a little bit silly here, or hang on a minute, let me be silly with you. And I think that's what we all need. I think we need to bring more loving energy into our lives in this next 7 days. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you to reach out to somebody, someone that you may not have been in contact with recently because you've been so busy, or it's been so long that you haven't done that. And you think, oh, gee, what are they going to think if I reach out to them now? Well, maybe this is the week to do so. Maybe that's going to be the thing that's going to put a smile on their life and make their life a much happier place, so that they can have that warm, fuzzy feeling also of feeling as if there's love in the air, that somebody really does appreciate me and care for me. So we have a busy week again astrologically, as we seem to be having every week since the pandemic started. And this week I want to sort of focus on the fact that, you know, we've got a number of things that are happening, but it's always a tricky time of the year when we're getting to a point where we're changing seasons and, you know, we change astrological energies every 28 days. But it's always, I think, a difficult time of the year around the world. We're here in Australia, we're heading towards spring in the next, 35, 40 days, and you guys in the Northern Hemisphere are heading towards your autumn or your fall. So it seems to be that those sort of 2 times of the year where I feel the energy is sort of more intense, It's more electrified. It's almost like as if we all are more amped. We feel more wired for some reason. Everything seems to be sort of major in our lives. It's like if you kick your toe, you haven't just kicked your toe, you've really kicked your toe. And it's like, gee, did I break it? You know, it's very painful. So it's like everything is sort of exaggerated. Now, I'm not blaming that on the sun being in Leo as much as some people would like to blame it on that. I actually like it when the sun's in Leo because I feel it puts a nice glow on the world where we can all get out and strut our stuff a little bit and there's a little bit more confidence and people are speaking their mind. And the Leo energy above the other two fire sign energies always makes me feel I feel confident, and I'm not a Leo, but I feel comforted because it's, you know, Leo the lion. It's like I want to be protective of everyone. Everybody around me needs to be protected. And it's like a very protective, fiery, sort of outspoken sort of energy where we can all go out and strut our stuff and sort of, you know, walk out and center stage and just be ourselves. And the next person really either doesn't care or doesn't see you or isn't judging you because I suppose they're too busy focusing on them strutting their stuff on the stage next. So in a way, it's a very protective time, but it's also quite a self-absorbed time too. So it's a time where I think we can just sort of get a little bit of juices back in the tank and sort of start to feel like we've got something worthwhile in the world to sort of sing and dance about. And, you know, we can do with a bit of that at the moment. And particularly as the energies will start to shift into Virgo, the sun will be in Virgo before we blink. So it's really is time to sort of really just enjoy this last few days. We've got about another week of the Leo energy, so let's really enjoy it. Let's really get out there and strut our stuff and sort of sing and dance and, you know, do something that makes us feel happy. I think it's a time to start to feel happy. I think there's been far too much sadness and far too much seriousness going on in the world that we need to have a little bit of a blowout. And as much as you can in your own local area, for many people, I know they're still in restrictions and not able to go out and have a normal life, even though they may have been vaccinated, but COVID may still be raging in your area. I know here in Australia, we've got it every day. It sort of seems to be a depressing city. Every time you turn on the news, there's more and more cases and more rules and regulations that we have to abide by. But look, I'm one of those people that's happy to do that if it means that we can all eventually get back to a life where we can have a life again and we can do things that are normal and we can hug our children and our grandchildren and our friends and our relatives and go to a concert or go on holidays and be able to do normal things. So the more we all band together and try and, you know, wage war at the pandemic and instead of it authorities that are trying to keep us safe, I think the better the world will be. So we have two major planets sitting in Virgo. Now we have the planet of communication, Mercury. Now Mercury does involve everything that means communication, whether that's a text message, an email, you having a phone conversation, you just having a person-to-person conversation, whether you send a letter by snail mail, it doesn't matter. It's whatever the form of communication is. Now, Mercury isn't always a goody two-shoes. Mercury sometimes can be a little bit naughty, can be a little bit deceptive when it comes to the things that we're communicating about. Sometimes Mercury likes to sort of play practical jokes and be a little bit naughty in that way, but sometimes he can also be very naughty in the way that he directly says something that will deliberately upset somebody. So you have to be really careful when you've got Mercury holding hands or making any sort of configuration astrologically with another planet, because we never know which side of Mercury we're going to get. Well, we're going to get the good side or the not so good side, the one that wants to play the practical joke or really wants to speak their mind and really doesn't care about the consequences. Now, with it holding hands or conjunct Mars, Mars is the planet of action. It is also the planet of war, unfortunately, I must share with you, but it's the planet that makes us get out of bed of a morning. It gives us our drive to get up and achieve things in our lives. Now, the fact that this is sitting in Virgo troubles me a little bit because it means that we've got the planet of communication conjunct or holding hands, the planet of action in Virgo. So it means that there's almost like, with the Virgonian energy here, it's almost like a cold energy. It's like it's very logical, practical, down to earth. It's very matter of fact. It's very, not so much a me first energy, but it's almost like we can remove the emotion completely out of it. Now, that's the part that concerns me a little bit. If we have too many people that are in positions of power that are communicating in their very best grown up, I'm the boss type voice and I'm not going to take no for an answer and I don't care what the consequences are, then we've got a real problem on our hands. Now, let's hope that our leaders around the world have got enough common sense collectively, if we bang all their heads together, that we don't have a result like that, that we have some very strategic, logically well thought out plans or ways forward of being able to resolve some of the issues around the world, whether it be in Afghanistan or whether it be, and I'm going to bring COVID into this, that how we handle the pandemic going forward as a world, not just as individual countries or individual nations. And look, I appreciate and I understand that charity begins at home and we've got to look after our own first. But we also have to keep one eye on the bigger picture, that we are not just in this pandemic on our own or in our own nation or in our own country. Yes, it's important to get on top of it in our own local environment, in our own country, but we also have to spare a thought for some of the countries around the world that are less fortunate, that don't have the financial resources that we have. And we also have to look at looking after those and helping them come out the other side of this pandemic as well. So there's a number of ways of looking at Mercury conjunct Mars. It's not necessarily do we plonk it all and just say it all belongs to Afghanistan. I don't believe that. I believe it belongs with COVID as well. And I'm going to say it also belongs with climate change, that we need to get some logical, practical solutions. I mean, Greece is on fire. There's hardly any trees left. You know, this is absolutely devastating. We don't need these sort of fires raging in that sort of part of the world or any part of the world. And then we've had the California fires, and then in the southern hemisphere, we'll be heading into fire season soon. We've got to start to take climate change seriously. Now, it's interesting because the North Node, which is not actually a planet, the North Node is where we're looking to aim to be. Now, the North Node at the moment is in Gemini. Now, I'm looking at that as we've got a little reprieve here. If we're all aspiring to be more like the Gemini energy, which is practical, is versatile, is a little bit flighty sometimes, but it's more about taking care of our own local environment. It's about getting people to listen to the communication that we might have to say. Now, it might only be a headline or a one-liner. It may not be the whole book. It might only be the page out of the book, but it's giving us something to think about and to become a little bit more versatile in our thinking. So let's hope some of the powers that be around the world are listening to that and trying to find some different innovative solutions to the problems that we collectively face as a globe on many fronts. Now, we have the moon, the emotional planet, in Sagittarius at the moment, so it's in a fire sign. It'll only be there for another 12 or so hours. But I wanted to talk about the moon here because I think the moon here is asking each and every one of us to get up out of our chair and be a little bit more focused and be a little bit more outspoken on things that are going on around us, but maybe also share a thought for the people overseas from us, away from us, a long distance from us, that maybe they might need a helping hand as well, or maybe they need us to speak up in our own local environment, which might help them too. It's not the time to pick a fight with someone. It's the time to sort of let our emotions be honoured. You know, if we're cranky about something, share that with a politician, send them an email and tell them how disappointed you are they haven't done enough for COVID, or they're not taking enough notice of the environment or whatever. Many hands make life work in that way. And it's time to sort of put our emotions down in some form or another, that maybe somebody else will listen to us, and it may be a positive way of getting our message across. Now, we also have the planet Uranus. Uranus is a planet that I quite often talk about on the show. Uranus is like the Tower card in the tarot. It's the unusual, the unexpected. It's like the bolt of lightning. It's the things that can come out of nowhere. Now, Uranus has been sitting in a retrograde position, or seemingly going backwards, for some months now. So he hasn't actually been hogtied, but he's had sort of his wings clipped a little bit, and he hasn't been able to sort of create some of the breakthroughs that we so desperately need in the world at the moment. Now, I'm pleased to say Uranus is going to go direct in the next 7 days, and we'll spend, a couple of months at least going direct. So we should maybe start to get some of those light bulb moments, some of those answers that sort of seem to be heaven sent that come out of nowhere, that we start to find some sort of direction, hopefully out of COVID, or maybe we get some light bulb moments on how we can start to tackle climate change, because it is becoming a real problem. And, the things that I've seen in the last week, another 1.5 degrees of warming in a very short space of time, we're only talking years, not hundreds of years, is a real concern for the planet. And for those people that don't believe in climate change, look, that's your prerogative, as it is if you don't believe in vaccines, that's your prerogative. But I think collectively as a world, we've got to start looking at this and saying, well, the scientists can't be mad. There is a reason why the sea levels are rising, why we're getting more droughts, fires, bushfires, tsunamis, floods in places that haven't had a flood for over 100 years. There's a reason behind this. It's not just a seasonal thing, and it's not just one of those 1 in 100-year events. They seem to be happening nearly every week. So we have to ask the question, why and how is this happening? And I truly do believe it is because we need to take some responsibility. Each and every one of us can do something towards climate change, even if it's just starting a recycling bin that you've never had, or be conscious of when you go to purchase something, buy the product that has the least amount of man-made packaging, and particularly if it's plastics, knowing it doesn't break down. Let's go back to some old-fashioned things like paper, where at least it breaks down and we can reuse it for another purpose. We can all make a small difference in the world at how we do things. And I'm pleased to say here in Australia, we've had lots of resurgence with farmers markets and people going to a local market and buying fresh produce instead of buying something off a supermarket shelf that's spent days getting there and coming from one side of the country to the other. And I think if we all just go back to some basic, simple things like that, shopping locally as much as possible, supporting our local growers and farmers and things like that. That's our one little contribution that we can make. And, it's really interesting when you look at that, we buy clothing this day and age and we're lucky to get a season or two out of it. And even if it's something that's your favourite piece of clothing, it wears out, it falls apart. Now, not that many years ago, I know a lot of people are going to say that was back in the olden days, Amanda, we bought outfits that we put a different shirt or a blouse under, but we had a jacket and a nice skirt or a nice pair of trousers that went with it. And we didn't have a lot of things in our wardrobe. Things seemed to go on forever. You sort of used to wish they'd hurry up and wear out because you were sick of looking at them. We need to go back to things more like that, instead of us being the throwaway society that we've always got to have the latest gadget on the kitchen bench or driving the latest car or having the latest whatevers. We have to look at having things that we can have for a very long time. And that will also help us with where we go with climate change too. And I think that's also important, that we need to teach our children that too, that we don't always have to throw things out, that they can be recycled or handed on to someone else so that they have more than one lifetime. And if there's one positive thing that's come out of COVID, besides the fact that we've all had to look at ourselves and see what's important to us, has been the resurgence of gardening. And I think that's a great thing, that we're teaching our children how to grow food. So we're going to talk with Alicia in Maple Ridge, in Maple Ridge, British Columbia. Are you there, Alicia?
Oh, yes, I am.
Do you have a question I can work with, please, Alicia?
I'm just kind of looking for direction with my love life right now. I'm kind of torn between two different paths I could be going, and just trying to look for the right guidance, I guess.
Your love life, is that what you'd like me to look at, Alicia?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you sort of faded in and out there, so I wanted to make sure I was going to answer the right question for you. It's really, really interesting, Alicia, because what they're showing me around you at the moment, it's not as if you can't have love in your life, and it's not that you don't deserve it. It's almost like, are you ready for it? And I mean, that might sound a silly question, but sometimes we might think that we're ready for love, but we're somehow or another, yeah, I want it, but hang on a minute, I'm frightened, or hang on a minute, I don't want it to be the same as last time, or hang on a minute, I don't want this or I don't want that. So we put up roadblocks or blockages there to love coming into our lives. Now, look, I'm not saying we should take the first person that comes along. If anything, I'm the exact opposite to that. I always try and teach people that, you know, you need to attract somebody that can bring more into your life than what you can provide for yourself. And then that way you've got something to build on together. Is there someone there around you at the moment, though, Alicia, that you felt that there should have been a relationship with, but it's been slow to get off the ground?
It's somebody we were together in the past, but there was a lot of things just get in the way with him, and he's been trying to come back into my life, and I just don't really know.
Yeah, it's interesting because
thing for me.
Yeah, I was going to say to you, I could see new love coming into your life, but then I kept on getting this one to sort of, I wanted to put to one side. It was like they were there, but they weren't there. So that makes sense to me now. Look, sweetie, I don't know that it's not necessarily does he want to come back into your life. I just don't think he's removed the obstacles and the complications and everything that were in his life to be unable to enable that to happen quickly enough. So I think as much as there was a great connection there with him, I think maybe that's part of the blockage. Maybe we need to put that to one side and say to ourselves and tell the universe that, look, no matter what you've got planned for me, I need to move forward. So it's my time now to sort of open myself up to whatever the future may be, whether it's the man from, you know, the sideways step or whether it's someone new. I'm ready. I'm ready to sort of embrace what life has got to bring with me. I feel there's going to be someone new, and I feel there's someone new coming in around October. He has dark hair, twinkly brown eyes, and he really treats you very well. Very different, I think, from people that you've dated or had relationships with in the past, but I feel that this is the right connection because finally I think we've got a grown-up relationship where you both really accept each other for all your good points and your not so good points. And it's sort of, you know, we've got a good solid foundation upon which we can build, which is good because I feel you've been the one, Alicia, that's given far too much in a relationship previously. And this time you've got to be on the receiving end. You've got to be the one to receive things this time, not just be the one doing all the heavy lifting and doing all the giving. Do you understand what I mean by that? Yes? Okay. All right. Well, we seem to have lost Alicia there. So that's where we're going to leave Alicia. And we're going to talk with Savannah in Pensacola in Florida. Are you there, Savannah?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a question I can work with, please, Savannah?
Ma'am? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you have a question you'd like me to answer for you?
Not in particular. I just.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll just give you what I get then, Savannah, if you're happy with that. The first thing that they're showing me is that I want you to stop being so hard on yourself. It's like you're really, really strict and hard on yourself that you never sort of give yourself any praise. Now, I know that's not going to be an easy thing that we can just flick a switch and that's all going to happen today. But I want you to start looking at some of your good points and giving yourself a pat on the back and saying, that was a job well done, or I'm a really nice person because of this, or wasn't it great that I helped somebody last week with their shopping, or whatever the case may be. I want you to start feeling good about yourself. There's lots of amazing new things that are going to start to slowly come into your life, Savannah, by you starting to accept to receive. And that's a really hard thing when you're such a giver and you're such a doer of everybody and you don't ever stop to give yourself some sort of accolade or some sort of acknowledgement of what you've been doing for others. You've got to also learn to receive, and it's a hard thing to do when you're such a giver. So I want you to start sort of looking at, gee, I did a nice thing for myself today. Acknowledge that so that we can have more nice things coming towards you. Were you planning on making a change of residence, moving somewhere else, Savannah?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm seeing a change coming up for you, a change of residence. Would it be as early as October or before October?
Yes, it would.
Oh, good. Because the sooner we can bring that on board, I think the sooner we can start having some really wonderful things start to happen in your life. So I'm seeing the move. I'm seeing right behind the move the opportunities there to bring in a little bit of extra income. Now, I'm not saying it's a brand new job. What I'm saying is there's opportunities around whatever ways you're structuring your income at the moment to increase that just marginally. As we head towards the end of the year, you're going to feel as each day goes by, you're feeling a little bit more strong, a little bit more confident that you're finally on the right track, that you've ridded yourself of all the sort of negative influences and the people that were sort of using you and pulling you down, that we've sort of managed to not necessarily cut them out of your life, but they're no longer having an influence over you. So therefore, they're doing their stuff and you're happily getting on with your life. As we head into 2022, Savannah, I want to say that's going to be one of the best years of your life. It's like, be very, very careful what you wish for next year, because you may just get it. And it's not about sitting there wishing and saying, oh, I wish I had $1 million. I don't mean that. It's about things just going really well in your life, and things that you thought weren't possible could open up. I feel by March, there could very well be a new opening for a dream job, something that you never thought in your wildest dreams you could ever achieve will be yours. So there's love around you, there's a new home, and everything is just starting to become sparkly and fresh and new. Savannah, did you have a bit of an issue with a health situation earlier this year?
Yes, ma'am.
That seems to be almost completed now. Whatever you're doing or however you've handled that, I want to say keep going, because we've almost got on top of this, and I don't see your health being such a major focus next year. So I think you've got everything to live for, everything to be excited about, Savannah, and you want to give yourself a packet of gold stars. You've really, really worked very hard on making changes in your life, and you're going to start to see the fruits of your labours very, very soon. So I can only wish you the very, very best, Savannah. Just keep going. You're on the right path, sweetie, and a lot of wonderful things are coming your way. Well, that's where we're going to leave Savannah in Florida. And I hope that everybody's been able to take something out of the readings today, that, you know, it's up to us. If we want change in our lives, we're the ones that have got to get up off the couch and, you know, take those first steps towards making things happen. And even in difficult times, we can still achieve so much. We can still improve ourselves, improve our lives, and really improve who we are, and try and send out some of that loving energy around the world this week. Wouldn't it be nice if everybody did what we needed to do, and All You Need Is Love by the Beatles? I think that should be our theme song for the week. So until next week, bye for now.